Sami Hutsunen. What is the biggest known secret within the Sea Organization? Meaning, something everyone knows but nobody wants to talk about. Or biggest thing that everyone knows is a scam / lie / false information, but nobody dares to question it and just kind of goes with it. Thanks for this question, Sami. It's an interesting one and I gave it quite a bit of thought. I'm going to say that I think the biggest elephant in the room, so to speak, especially at the level of the Sea Org, where I think it's most apparent, is the idea that L. Ron Hubbard's issues and bulletins and lectures are the single source of where Scientology authority and activities come from. Because you learn pretty quickly that David Miscavige, as the head of Scientology, issues orders and directions that are contrary to L. Ron Hubbard's policies all the damn time. And they do it anyway. The people follow those orders and directions anyway because David Miscavige is revered. He is the one who got the IRS tax exemption pushed through. He's the one who's responsible personally for the golden age of tech, the golden age of knowledge, the golden age of dissemination, the golden age of tech phase 2, and every other golden age of nonsense that he has pushed out since the mid-90s. So he is the head honcho. He's the guy whose dictates and orders and directions must be followed without question. And if you even think about not following something he has said to do, the group will, just come, they'll just eat you alive. I mean, there's just zero tolerance for any questioning of David Miscavige's orders and directions. And I've given lots of examples in the past on this show and in other videos I've done of how that works. But it's, believe me, it is just, it's black and white. You get an order from him, you are to comply with it exactly and precisely, and you are to, how high, sir, salute with both hands. Regardless, it doesn't matter what the order is, and it doesn't matter how many L. Ron Hubbard policies or dictates it violates. And people see this because, Eric said, like other people have commented many times here, Scientologists are not a bunch of morons. They're not idiots. They see what's going on. They see, they can observe what's happening. It's just that their cognitive dissonance, kind of forces them into, in their belief system that they hold on to so tightly, forces them to follow certain paths and to avoid others. And so questioning David Miscavige is one of those things that you just avoid. You just figure it out in your head and you reconcile it, because if you don't, you will be made to figure it out and reconcile it. Otherwise, you're going to be history pretty quick. There's a very low tolerance within the world of Scientology for anyone questioning, disobeying, querying, wondering anything about David Miscavige's orders. I learned this very early on. I think I've told this story before, but I'll tell you guys again just to give you the idea of this. David Miscavige, when I was Santa Barbara staff back in 1993, I think it was, I was a technical person. I was a supervisor over the courses and the delivery of auditing in Santa Barbara. Tiny little podunk org, like I've said. And we got this order from David Miscavige. And it was about doing a very technical procedure. And this was not something I'd ever seen David Miscavige talk about or give orders about before. But he described how everybody in the world was doing this particular procedure wrong, and how now he clarified why they were doing it wrong. He was not correct in what he said, but he was expounding on this. And he said that everybody needed to redo the training step that taught you how to do this technical procedure. And I was one of the people who was going to have to do this. Well, I read this issue and I understood what he was saying, and I said, well, this isn't my problem. I don't do this. So I queried his order. And the people in the Santa Barbara organization were like, well, okay, if you want to do that, you go right ahead. And they weren't putting their name on it. I was the one putting my name on it. So I sent this formal query of his order up the line to David Miscavige. This was according to an L. Ron Hubbard policy called Orders Query Of. If you get an order and you don't like it, or you think it violates policy, or you think it's not correct, you can query it. It's within your rights to do that. So I did. And I said that this order specifically violated another Hubbard policy called inspecting before the fact, where you try to correct something that doesn't need to be corrected because of some arbitrary order, blanket order, just like was what was happening. Within 2 days of me sending this order, 2 people from RTC, the Religious Technology Center, which is David Miscavige's personal organization, very, very high up, the highest organization in Scientology, showed up in Santa Barbara in person to deal with me. They took me into a room, put me on the e-meter, asked me all kinds of invasive questions about my personal life and what kind of ethics situations I was involved in, whether there was some kind of out ethics, wrongdoing that I was involved in. And then got onto this thing of, where did you get the idea to query an order from David Miscavige? Now, I'm this lowly staff member in a podunk church, and these 2 guys show up in full Sea Org regalia to deal with me because I dared to question David Miscavige. So I'm freaking out. I'm sitting there in this chair, and this person is like, where'd you get this idea? And I'm like, L. Ron Hubbard policy? And, it's what Hubbard said to do? And they're like, yeah, but where'd you get the idea to do this? Who told you to do this? And I'm like, well, nobody really told me. I'm the one who came up with the idea. And we went back and forth on this for 2 hours. Bam, bam, who was it? Who was it? Because I was this lowly staff member, but they weren't thinking I was the SP. They figured some other person had gotten to me that would make me think that David Miscavige somehow wasn't the Greek god of Scientology and that I needed to be dealt with. So eventually, I don't even remember what we came up with, but we figured some weird permutation of somebody saying something to me that somehow would give me the idea that maybe David Miscavige could possibly be wrong about something. And that was the end of that interview. And then this other guy took me in a room and ran me through this technical procedure to check me out on it. And of course, he was going to find every little thing that I could possibly do wrong. Mainly, I was screwing up because of the authority status. I mean, this was God coming down and working me over on this procedure. I already had an ethics interview. I'd already been raked over the coals. I knew I was in a lot of trouble. And now this guy was going to show me the what for on this technical procedure. So he grills me on it and, of course, finds things that I'm doing that are wrong because I'm nervous as hell. And then demands that I do it right, and we figure that out. And then they leave. And the end result of that entire encounter was that I had it baked into my brain. This was even before I got into the Sea Org. Just a lowly little staff member, that I would never, ever dare to query an order from David Miscavige. So that's how that kind of thing works, So that's kind of the elephant in the room there is, that David Miscavige's orders are senior to L. Ron Hubbard. And you would never, ever say that out loud. Ever. Because L. Ron Hubbard is the nominal head and source and senior, figure of Scientology. But everyone knows that's not really true. So, there you go.